So we are now in the days between Gimel Tammuz and Yud Gimel Tammuz. Yud Gimel Tammuz is coming up the end of this week. It is celebrated certainly amongst all Chabad Hasidim and those connected to Chabad Hasidus and the Rebbeim as a holiday. It's one of the days during the year we don't say Tachnun. Chabad is very makpid to say Tachnun. There are other groups that they don't say Tachnun in certain days. But Chabad is makpid. Yud BeisTammuz, Yud Gimel Tammuz is one of those days we don't say Tachnun. It's considered a holiday because the previous Rebbe was released from Soviet prison, from an incarceration that was a very, very difficult incarceration. He was beaten. We're going to see the Rebbe tells a story. We're going to learn that sikha today. And then it's not a very long sikha. If we finish early, we'll learn a mimer from the previous Rebbe. Previous Rebbe writes very, very well, very deep but clear and simple ma'amarim. So I think everyone will enjoy it. When the Rebbe was freed, the previous Rebbe we're talking about, he said, Lo oti bilvad ga'alun. Not just me was free. Ela kol echad she b'shem Yisrael yikonu. Not only me, but everyone who is referred to as a Jew. Referred to as a Jew. Would you consider yourself referred to as a Jew? You're a Jew. There's people that don't even consider themselves Jews. They know they're Jews, and others refer to them as Jews. They know they're Jews, but it's not much part of their life. The previous Rebbe, I think these words are quite prophetic, because the previous Rebbe said, this is a geula for the entire Jewish people, not just for me, and not just for the entire Jewish people, but even those who are referred to as Jews. What happened after the previous Rebbe was freed? Chabad, first he went to Warsaw, first he went to Riga, then he went to Warsaw, then he came to the United States, and his son-in-law, Rebbe, took over. The previous Rebbe began the project of the Shluchim, of sending out emissaries all over the world. The Rebbe continued and expanded on that project until today. It's continuing to expand, and there's very few places where there are Jews where you don't find Chabad. There probably are still some, but there are Chabad's pretty much everywhere. And so many Jews have been touched by Chabad. So many Jews have been touched by the Rebbe, have been touched by Chabad houses, by the Shluchim. They've connected in one way or another. They've returned to their Yiddishkeit, or even if they haven't returned to their Yiddishkeit, they've strengthened. They've gotten strengthened in the Yiddishkeit. Imagine what it would be like if there weren't Chabad all over the world. We don't even want to imagine it. So I think, therefore, the words of the previous Rebbe were in a way prophetic. That it's a redemption for not only me, not only entire Jewish people, but even everyone, even those who are just referred to as Jews. Because of his redemption, Chabad was able to continue and to expand and to grow. And even those who were just referred to as Jews, it's redemption for them because they got connected and they got attached. And once you're connected and once you're attached, that's it. That's it. So you hold on to a piece of the garment, a piece of the essence. You're holding on to the whole essence. One time there was a chassid. He wanted to go to university. And the previous Rebbe was very much against going to university because he was of the opinion that it was a immoral and a place of kfira, place of immorality and kfira. How do you say that? Kfira. Anybody?
Kfira.
Kfira. Apostasy?
No. Negation.
a place where Yiddishkeit is it's not a place where you're gonna be. It's gonna you're going into a pit of filth and mud, and don't go. So there was discussed that he wanted to go to university, and he spoke to the Rebbe about it. And this was before the Rebbe was the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, "Yeah, but don't you know what the Rebbe says? Don't you know? He says not to go." He said, "So I won't be a chassid." He said, "You're a chassid. You can't go. What? Don't you know what the Rebbe said? So I won't be a chassid anymore." The Rebbe smiled. He said, "No, it doesn't work that way. Once you're connected, you're connected. And if you go, you're going to schlep the Frierdiker Rebbe with you into the pit." You know what happened in the end?
Rabbi Sachs was a chassid, and he went to university.
But he became a chassid afterwards. And the Rebbe encouraged people. He didn't encourage people to go, but if people were in university,
He wouldn't encourage them to leave.
that's correct. He would say, use your skills that you're learning to spread Yiddishkeit, because there's nothing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created without a purpose. Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu created was with a purpose to serve him. When the Rebbe was asked, radio came out. And radio became a medium to be able to reach a lot of people. And one of the Hasidim wanted to give a Tanya shore on radio. And the Rebbe encouraged it very much. And many of the other rabbis at the time were very much against it. And they attacked the Rebbe for it. And the Rebbe said, this is what it's for. This is what it needs to be used for. It needs to be used to spread Torah and mitzvahs. Right? Like it says in the Gemara that the gold and silver were only created to be used in the Beis Hamikdash. That's what it's used for. If it's in the world, Hashem created it. Some things you have to stay away from. The shalosh klipos of Tammuz, the 3 totally impure klipos. But some things can be elevated if you use them the right way. Yes, sir.
Chabad.org still do it.
Yes.
Recommended it to secular commercial companies just as a website. Check out the net for any.
Right. It's a great website. It's got a wealth of information over it. All right. So let's start learning the Sikha that the Rebbe talks about the story of Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, which is the days of the release of the previous Rebbe from incarceration in Soviet prison. And it's coming up this Thursday night and Friday night. So it'll be a special Shabbos that's coming up in the Chabad shuls all over the world, and there'll be for bringing. So keep your eyes and ears open for bringings near you to make a l'chaim, because it's very important to make a l'chaim and to be joyous. בין הסיפורים שהרבי בעל השמחה והגאולה סיפר אודות המאסר והגאולה שלו, one of the stories, amongst the stories that the previous Rebbe, the one who was redeemed, and it's his day of the Baal HaSimcha. Baal HaSimcha? You know, when there's a wedding and the father makes a simcha, he makes it for his son or his daughter, he's called the Baal HaSimcha, the owner of the simcha. How would you say it in English? Master of the simcha?
Host.
Huh?
Host.
The host. Right. So the master of the simcha and the redemption, the previous Rebbe, one of the stories, amongst the stories, the previous Rebbe said, Yeshnam ke'ela bahem mesupra al azman ha'maiser haya adayin betokvo. There were some of the stories that he told over when he was actually in prison. One of these stories is as follows. Miyat shuvilu et Rebbe lebeit hasohar, קיבל על עצמו החלטה איתנה, שלא יאבד חס ושלום עשתונותיו. As soon as the Rebbe was brought into the jail, he accepted upon himself a powerful decision that he would not lose chas v'shalom any of his ways, any of his any of his ways, eshtonotav, the ways he went in, his paths. That's one thing he decided. And the second thing he decided, v'shelo yitpa'el mehem, from the GPO. That was the precursor to the KGB. GPO.
GPU.
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 Okay. It says here Aleph Vav, so that could be O or U. You're right. The GPU, you're saying? Okay, the GPU. Thank you.
They call them say GPU.
GPU. And he wouldn't become Lo Yitpael man. He wouldn't become afraid of them. He wouldn't become nervous from them at all. That's a hard thing that's a hard decision to keep. It's maybe not such an easy decision to make, but to actually keep that decision when you're in the living hell and torture, and we'll see. So that was a decision he made, and he took upon himself. Not only would he not pay attention to them when it came to matters that had to do with avodas Hashem, tirat shamayim, the fear of heaven, he wouldn't even consider them as a metzius, as something that exists, that has power. Until he would consider them, in his wording, as nothing. As nothing, they're nothing. We know that this is a principle in the Talmud that's not always so hard to follow through on internalizing this principle and making it part of our life all the time. But this is a principle mentioned in Tanya, that since we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is creating the world at every moment, He's doing it. The world wouldn't be in existence if Hashem wasn't constantly bringing it from nothing to something at every moment. So therefore, Tanya says, there's nothing in the world that actually could prevent the Jew from serving Hashem if he wants to. There's nothing. Because since Hashem is creating it, Hashem is not creating a metzius, a something that can actually prevent the Jew, because he wants a Jew to serve him. It can serve as a challenge to the Jew. It can be a difficult challenge, a very difficult challenge. But nothing can prevent the Jew from serving Hashem. So every challenge that we face in our lives, we have to realize these are challenges that Hashem is giving us. And since He's giving it to us, He gave us the power to overcome them. Now, that all makes sense, right? But nevertheless, sometimes it's not so easy to fulfill. Yes, sir. Want to say something?
I like to use the word assignments.
Assignment, that's good. Like in school. There was a Rav, he passed away, Rav Yankel Tauber. Maybe you've heard of him. So I heard him once, I didn't hear this, I read in one of his books, that he said, he was talking about this idea in a little bit of a different way. But he said, imagine a guy, he's got to get to a very, very important business appointment on time, otherwise it'll affect his parnasa, and he's got to catch a train, and he's running late, and he's on his way out, and he spills coffee on his tie. So now maybe he'll still make it if he runs. He runs back to the room, he gets a new tie, he takes off his tie quickly, grabs a new tie, starts to run out the door, and his wife says to him, Chaim, could you please change the baby before you leave? It's a tough challenge. He's got no time. He really has no time. It's questionable if he'll make the train. And he yells, and he gets out of here, I have no time, I have to run. And he runs in. So now imagine the same scenario, right? But it's before the guy wakes up, he's in the middle of dreaming, he's in the middle of sleeping, and he has a dream. In the middle of his dream, Hashem comes to him and he says to him, Chaim, he says, I want to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. You're going to be late, and you're going to be rushing, and you're going to spill coffee on your tie, and you're going to run back to get a new tie. And as you're out the door, your wife's going to ask you to change the baby. It's very important that you stay calm and you change the baby. Now, imagine, he has this dream, and now he goes through the same scenario again. His reaction is going to be completely different because he understands it's a challenge that Hashem is giving to him. How does he understand that it's a challenge? Because Hashem told him.
Train was 20 minutes late.
Sometimes the train is late, too. Rarely, right? Is a train ever late? It could be late, yeah. Are trains ever late?
Not in German.
Run by Egan.
What? By who?
Egan.
Egan.
Egan, the postman.
Then they're late.
Basket.
No.
Explain.
That's why.
So it's all a challenge. There's probably a book. There's probably a book called It's All a Challenge, right? It's all a challenge Hashem gives us. So that's a principle that was not invented by the previous Rabbi, but the previous Rabbi took upon himself this challenge. He understood that it's going to be a challenge, and he decided that no matter what happens, he is not going to consider them as a mitzvah, as a something of a power. And you're talking about Brit HaMoatzot. You're talking about the Russia under the Tsar, that they were the Soviet Union. They were one of the superpowers. And they were not friendly to those who went against their government. And he according to them, by keeping the sparks of Yiddishkeit alive, was guilty of treason, because they were an atheist communist government. Yes, sir.
Well, just speaking of human nature, you go through all those challenges, and you're very upset. And then you get to the train, it's 20 minutes late, and you start cursing the train. I rushed here.
מצב נפשי זה לא ישתנה אצלו גם לאחר שנענש על סירובו לענות על שאלתם. This matzav nefesh that he took upon himself, this psychological decision that he took upon himself, didn't change by him, even after he was beaten for refusing to answer their questions. What was the punishment for? Oh, yeah. In other words, this psychological decision, this powerful decision that the Rebbe took upon himself didn't change even after they punished him. What was the punishment they gave him? He refused to answer their questions. So they punished him. What was the punishment? Shekalu oisei betzinuk. Tzinok, they put him in a cell, which was, a tzinok is like a tiny place. Shaya malei ad legoiva mesuyam berefesh, that was filled up to a certain height with filth, with garbage and filth. Lo haya amal li she'en, he had nothing to lean on. He was stuck in this cell filled with garbage. Nosaf lakach, in addition to this, rachashu achbarim v'ramasim b'toch harefesh v'ala ktalim. The place was filled with rats and other types of insects that were mamish living and crawling through the garbage and on the walls. That's not the regular solitary confinement that they put prisoners in. That's something that is scary. And you think about going into solitary confinement. I mean, I never thought about it till now, but I'm thinking about it right now. You know, okay, it's lonely. Probably after a while, it's torturous, but you're not actually sitting in filth up to a certain part of your body with rats and other insects crawling around. It's not scary like that, huh? What?
In a prison or
In a prison. And in this cell, this little cell, they kept him there for close to 24 hours. But even after this, even after this punishment that they gave him, he didn't change his decision. Not to consider them as a power that he has to like be afraid of. She considered them as nothing. In another part of his imprisonment, the Rebbe says that in the cell that he was in, the regular cell, not this cell that they put him in after as a punishment for refusing to answer their questions, they were asking him, tell us about your underground network of yeshivas. It wasn't like, they were asking him his name. He did answer their questions when they weren't when he wanted to, when they weren't things that he didn't want to answer. But he didn't want to reveal anything about his underground network. That would have put his Hasidim in danger. So he didn't answer their questions. And they punished him by putting him in this cell with them. But in the regular cell that he was in, there was no light. He couldn't know whether it was day or night. There was a little opening by the ceiling, but behind that opening there was a wall. So that little opening did not let any light get into his cell at all. So how did he know whether it was day or night? He knew by the schedule. There was a regular schedule that took place in the jail itself. והשעות הקבועות בהן היו מביאים מים חמים, they would bring hot water, וכיוצא בזה ידע הרבי להבחין בשעות היום. Through the schedule of when they would serve food, water, that's how he knew what time it was, but there were no windows. It says about the Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, he knew the time, even though he also didn't have windows. You know how he knew the time? Anyone hear that story? He knew the time because he was able to sense the godly energy that was coming into the world through the Shem Adnai, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, and it changes every hour. That, the way it's spelled, he was able to sense the change in the godly energy. And through that, he knew the exact time, all the time. Friedrich Rebbe, it says he didn't know whether it was day or night. The Rebbe doesn't point that out, but just a side point.
You're going to know the time.
Do you want to know the time? Well, you have to daven, right? You got to know when it's Shabbos. B'yom Chamishi, Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, on Thursday, which was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. The Rebbe was, okay, we'll see. B'shah 11 lifnei tzorayim, at 11 o'clock in the morning, Nichnasu shoitrim l'chadroi v'tzidu alav lakum. Police came into his cell and they ordered him to stand. Hashoitrim dibru rushit. The police spoke to him in Russian. Aval darko shel haRebbe hayta shehaya noeg lanot lem b'Yiddish. The Rebbe anale ki lo yakum. And the Rebbe answered them in Yiddish. They would speak to him in Russian, but the Rebbe is part of his decision not to consider them as any power. He would answer them in Yiddish. And they told him to stand, and he told them he wouldn't stand. Hanoye b'beit asoyer haya shebashat masirat yidiyah la'asir alav lekabel b'amida kedei lochiach la'asir shu natun tachat moratam lefichach sirev haRebbe lakum. The Rebbe explains why didn't the Rebbe stand. He said because the custom in the prison was that when the prison staff had a notification to give over to the prisoner had to stand while he was receiving that notification. Why did he have to stand? In order to show that he was under their power, under their rulership. And that was the reason why the Rebbe didn't stand. Can you hear that? She'achad hashotrim haya Yehudi. One of the police was a Jew. Shehivin et hatshuva b'Yiddish. The Russian police, they didn't understand the Rebbe. They didn't know Yiddish. But one of them was a Jew. And he understood Yiddish. And on the answer of the Rebbe, this Jew, he told him what the Rebbe said. He told the police what the Rebbe said. And then they told him again, Im lo titzayet NACHLAOT. If you don't stand, we will beat you. Hishiva Rebbe, no. He refused to stand. They beat him. And after they gave him a beating, they left his cell. Afterwards, a second group of police, of Russian police, came in. Beineim haya Lulav, and amongst them haya Lulav. Lulav was one of the Jews who was part of the Yivseksia, was part of the Jewish section of the Communist Party. That section was specifically created and designed to stamp out Yiddishkeit wherever and however it could. And Lulav came in with these police, and he was part of the arrest of the Rebbe. And he was also there when they brought the Rebbe initially into prison and when they did their investigations of the Rebbe. Lulav hayat tzetza shel Chasidim. Lulav was descended from Chasidim. V'et dvarav el Rebbe pataf b'tevat Rebbe. And when Lulav spoke with the Rebbe, even though Lulav had totally cast off all his observance of Yiddishkeit, he became a member of the Communist Party. He became a select stormtrooper of the Yivseksia group to attack and try to squash Yiddishkeit. And by being a Jew and being a descendant of the Hasidim, he knew the ways. You know, it's much worse when the spy comes from your midst, yeah, because the spy knows your ways. If the spy is a foreigner, it's not going to be as good of a spy naturally, right? Or a traitor. So Lulav, eventually, you know what happened to Lulav and the other Jews? There was another Jew or two that was in the Yivseksia. They were murdered by Stalin. For all their support and all their enthusiasm and all the idealism for communism, they were more communist than the communists themselves. They were so communist. They were so into it. They were willing to go against their own people. What was the result? The Tsar killed him for treason. Reminds me of a story with Rabbi Akiva, with the fish. Remember that story? Rabbi Akiva was put in prison by the Romans for teaching Torah. The Romans made a gezerah that it's forbidden to teach Torah. But Rabbi Akiva didn't listen to the gezerah. He continued to teach Torah, and he was captured and put in prison and eventually murdered. Like we say on Yom Kippur, we tell over the story. They cried out, Shema Yisrael with his dying breath. So there was another Jew there who was a Hellenist, a secular Jew. And he said to Rabbi Akiva, he said, why are you, or why was, I think, no, I don't think he visited him in prison. I think he said this to him while he was teaching. He said, why are you teaching Torah? Don't you know it's dangerous? You can get caught and put in prison. So Rabbi Akiva answered him with a parable. He said one time a person saw fish swimming, fleeing in fear, and the fox saw the fish fleeing in fear, and he said to the fish, "Why are you fleeing?" So he said, "The fishermen have cast their nets upon the waters, and we must flee because we don't want to be caught." Then you know what happens to the fish after they're caught. They lose their lives. They get eaten. So the fox said to them, "Well, then why don't you come on land with me?" So the fish said to the fox, "Foolish fox, if in the water, which is the source of our life and our sustenance, we fear for our lives, alachas kama v'kama al yabasha, how much more so than when we're outside of the source of our life and sustenance will our life be in danger?" And that's where Rabbi Akiva answered this secular Jew. He said, if by teaching and learning Torah our lives are in danger, how much more so by not learning Torah and keeping Torah and teaching Torah. But anyway, there were, and there always have been, and I guess it's part of the corruptness. You know, every Jew has a holy, pure soul that wants to serve Hashem, and it's extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. Like Superman. I figured if I would say Superman, someone would wake up. What is he talking about Superman? It's more powerful than Superman, because Superman, as you all know, he had a weakness, right? Yeah, see? Well, what do you know?
Kryptonite.
Kryptonite. What'd you call it?
Kryptonite, no.
Okay. He had a weakness. Well, it's a fictional character. But he had a weakness, right? The neshama has no weakness. The neshama is a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The advantage, though, that Superman had, though, is he always knew who he was, right? He was this, people didn't know he was Superman. They thought he was a Clark Kent, right? Clark Kent. But he knew who he was. He always knew who he really is powerful. His powers, what?
He wouldn't survive that. You know why?
He wouldn't survive what?
Yeah.
Why not?
Phones.
No phone booth. So anyway, that's our struggle, right? Our struggle is to always to tune into who we are. Sometimes we forget who we are, right? If we remember who we are, wow, I'm a part of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. I'm a part of the Ein Sof. I have infinite power. Wow, I'm not gonna get angry. I'm not gonna act in any way other than a Jew should act. Yeah? But we don't have that access all the time.
I think this question in the spirit again, isn't that the gift of anti-Semitism?
The gift of anti-Semitism? I don't understand what that means.
Good. How many people are in Israel because of anti-Semitism? And how many people are coming to Israel?
Yeah. What does that have to do with the holiness of the neshama and the infiniteness of the
Well,
neshama?
because we're saying about water. Israel is the water.
Ah, okay. Said he went. Okay, very good. Anyhow, so if that power, that Hashem gave us that power because He wants us to be able to meet all the challenges He gives us. He wants us to make the world a place where He will be revealed in the world, to reveal Him in the world through Torah and mitzvahs. And it takes effort. You need a lot of power to do that, right? You need a lot of power. It's much, much easier to just say, let the other guy, why do I have to make so much effort? It's much easier to be lazy than to actually to do it. It requires power. And if that power is misused, it can be misused for very bad things. It could be misused for not such bad things, right? You look at the Nobel Prize winners, right? And there's an unbalanced amount of Jews there, right? All kinds of Nobel Prize winners, all kinds of, what?
22?
I don't know how many of them. But it's that totally out of proportion. And leaders and all kinds of industries and leaders. It's crazy ideologies that popped up. Jews were involved. And sometimes, when it really gets corrupt, you get the self-hating Jews that they adopt the ideology and they replace it, and they take that power, and they have a lot of power because they're Jews, so they just misuse that power for bad things. So, but this guy Lulav addressed him as Rebbe, which was a greeting, a salutation of honor, to call him Rebbe. He didn't call him Schneerson, right? Or whatever they called him, or prisoner number, whatever. He didn't. He called him Rebbe.
This is the sexy again?
Yeah. He said, Rebbe, Madua atem mitamtim mitam. Why are you fighting with these police? Madua atem mitnachsim imam. Why are you trying to defeat them? Hem harei ba'im letzavot al halkalalachem. They're coming to tell you. They're coming to give you a piece of information, a notification about a lessening of your sentence. And if they tell you to stand, you should stand. Right? Lulav, obviously, he had some compassion. There was some Jew still left in him. Right? He's a Jew. It doesn't matter what a Jew does. He's still a Jew. Right? If someone converts to Judaism, they're no longer a non-Jew. They became a Jew. But you can't convert to Judaism. You're in. You could act against the way you should, but doesn't mean that you're not a Jew. It says in the Gemara, Yisrael, afilu shachata Yisrael. And that chet that the Gemara is talking about is avodah zarah. A Jew, even if he serves avodah zarah, is still called a Jew. So Lulav is telling him, you should stand. Rebbe didn't answer. So they beat him again. And one of them, it doesn't say who, hit the Rebbe under the chin. And that blow caused him pain for a very long time. And then after they beat him up a second time, this is all on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. The same day, they came back in. They left again. Then afterwards, a group of police came a third time, and another Jew was there that was a member of the Sexvia by the name of Kavala. And again, they commanded the Rebbe to stand, and the Rebbe did not stand. And they hit him a third time. And the one who hit him was Kowalov. Ach lelo ho'il, but it didn't help. And Kowalov became very, very angry, and he said in his anger, I don't know if this is Russian or Yiddish, but in Hebrew, he said to them, we're going to teach you a lesson. He yelled out, we're going to teach you a lesson. And the Rebbe answered him in Yiddish, we'll see who will teach who. They beat him again. And afterwards, they left, and another group came in, and they said, come follow us. So he went and followed them. Come follow us to the office. So he followed them to the office. And then in the office, they gave him the notification that they had wanted to give him in the jail cell, but they couldn't give him because it was customary that the prisoner had to stand. But he wasn't willing to stand. He wasn't willing to show that they had power over him. But now they took him to the office and they told him the notification. That notification that Lulav had mentioned to him, that they are going to be releasing him from prison and they're going to be exiling him for 3 years in a city by the name of Kostroma. That was one of the cities that the Soviets would exile people to. Kishitkareva Rebbe l'shulchan, when the Rebbe got close to the table, ra'at atika chakira shelo munach patuach. He saw his file open. V'az hivchin b'daf shebo nichtav psak dinan alav, and he was able to see on the paper where it said 3 years of exile to Kostroma, that was the last line. The first line was crossed out. But when the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe says in parentheses that this line, the first line said that they had shaftu oto l'mavet. They decreed death against him, Rachamim litzlan. Hashem have mercy. But since the Rebbe, when he told this story, he was alive in this world, he didn't want to say those words. So he just said that the first line was crossed out. But that's what it said in the first line. That they had made a verdict against him to kill him. And then underneath the first line was a second line. And then the second line, it said that the verdict against him was to be 10 years of exile in a place called Salakvi. And then next to that line was written the word nit, no. And then at the end of the page, or besof, the third line was written Shalosh Shanim LeKostroma, 3 years exile in the city called Kostroma. So when the Rebbe was informed of this, they asked him, which type of train would you like to travel on? And the Rebbe answered them, I really can't pronounce this word. I'll try. Mez Shadonarande. Mez Shadonarande. That type of a train. And in parentheses it says, Kach nikru hakronot behem nasu pikidei hamemshal o ashvirim. That was the type of train that government officials or wealthy people traveled in. That was a train the Rebbe said he wanted to travel to Kostroma. And then they asked him if he has what to pay for such a train. He answered that, because it was expensive, that train, he answered that all the money that they took when they arrested him from his office should be enough. But if it's not enough, he'll ask from his family members and they'll pay whatever still needs to be paid. The officials agreed to arrange travel arrangements like that for the Rebbe. And then they told him that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this was on a Thursday of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everything we said up till now had started at 11 in the morning. He was beaten 3 times. And then at 2 o'clock, they told him he would be released from the prison and he would be able to spend 6 hours with his family. And then at night, he would have to be on the train and leave the city and be on the way to Kostroma. So since this was already, the Rebbe understood this is already Thursday night, that he's leaving to Kostroma, he asked them, when will the train arrive in Kostroma? So they told him that it will arrive on Shabbos. And the Rebbe he gave al kach sheb'Shabbat hu lo yisa b'shum ofen. He doesn't travel on Shabbos. K'shesiper HaRebbe sifor zeh siyem, when the previous Rebbe told over this story, he finished this part of the story by saying, Baruch Hashem lo nasati b'Shabbat. Baruch Hashem, I did not travel on Shabbos. Notarti l'Shabbat b'Beit HaSohar. I stayed on Shabbos in the prison, ad Yom Rishon, until Sunday. Ki b'Yom Chamishi lo ratzah linsah, because he didn't want to travel on Thursday. V'ilu l'she'er b'beito zman yoter mimushach, and they didn't allow him to spend the rest of the time until the Sunday train with his family. They didn't allow him that. So so they prevented him from leaving the prison until Sunday. And B'Yom Rishon, on Sunday, he went to his home. He spent some time with his family, and that night, on Sunday night, he traveled by train to Kostroma. Now, do you think that it was permitted for him, according to halacha, to travel to Kostroma in order to get out of that Soviet prison, even if he would arrive in Kostroma on Shabbos? It was certainly a pikuach nefesh situation.
I wouldn't have told anyone about it.
You
I
wouldn't.
wouldn't have turned him in. Social publicity.
You wouldn't have turned them in. I mean, one can certainly make a case to say that, he was in a situation of pikuach nefesh, right? And when you're in a situation of pikuach nefesh and you can save your life, I mean, every minute being in that prison was they could change their mind again, being in that prison is very dangerous. So you could certainly make a case that he was permitted to leave. I mean, when the war in the Ukraine broke out, so one of the shluchim, I think it was the shluchim in Odessa, they fled Ukraine. I mean, bombs were starting to fall, and they fled on Shabbos. Pikuach nefesh situation, you flee. And they traveled for 3 days.
Well, they're an argument against it.
No, that's not brought up over here, but the Rebbe says, he said, I don't travel on Shabbos. That's what he told the officials who gave him the information that now you're free and you have to leave. And the Rebbe added that he sent his chassid, Reb Michael Dvorkin, to Kostroma before him, and until he would arrive, until the Rebbe would get there, in order that Reb Michael would be able to organize children over there, Jewish children, and make a cheder. And he should also try to fix the mikveh, that it should be in proper working order by the time the Rebbe arrived. So you see, this is like Yaakov Avinu. It says Yaakov Avinu sent Yehuda to Goshen to set up a yeshiva before he went down to Mitzrayim. So the previous Rebbe also sent one of his Hasidim to prepare some Yiddishkeit over there. Koloima Osoa Pulot should be Glalam Asru at the Rebbe. So the Rebbe points out, look at this, the very same activities that because of these activities they arrested the previous Rebbe in the first place and then decreed against him death, Rahman al-Islam. And it was only because of a tremendous commotion all over the world by Rabbanim and influential people on the government of Russia to release this Rebbe that they agreed not to kill him, and they put him in exile in Kostroma. That itself was a nace. So nevertheless, even though this was the very things that he was arrested for and got him into trouble in the first place, he said the same thing to continue to do. Oh, and then the Rebbe says, like the pasuk says, Yaakov sent to open a yeshiva in Goshen. Ushalach l'sham shaliach, the Rebbe sent a shaliach Liyased at a cheder, to open up a cheder, for a school for young children to learn Torah, and to fix the mikveh for the general public of Jewish people that were living there. So the Rebbe says, what lessons can we learn now from this story? So the Rebbe says, one of the lessons we can learn is, Rebbe Nasi, since the Rebbe is the leader of the generation, Hu patach, hu salal et haderech, he opened the path. Harei k'sheyudi machlit b'nafsho b'tokef gadol, for when a Jew decides in his soul with a strong tokef, with a strong strength, with a large strength, a serious decision, that anything that is going to prevent his godly soul from serving Hashem is nothing. And when the decision is so powerful that even if they come and they beat it 3 times, because 3 times we know according to halacha is considered a chazaka, according to Shulchan Aruch. And that's a type of a proof that it is a Metzius. If he gets beaten 3 times, so halachically there's a Metzius happening over here. It says the first time a little scratch is made, the second time it makes a deeper, the first time is a little scratch, the second time it then, the third time it pierces through. It's a chazak. B'chol zot, even though there's room to argue that look, they have power. B'chol zot, ein zeh pogea ba'achlato. Nevertheless, this will not affect his powerful decision to serve Hashem no matter what. That's the first lesson that the Rebbe teaches us that we can learn from the story of the previous Rebbe. That when a Jew makes a power, and then he says that the previous Rebbe opened the path for this. You understand what it means to open the path, that other people can go on the path? What? The Tivot, yeah. You know, there's a story of Rav Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, that he was struggling with a Rambam, with a very difficult Rambam. And he was struggling to understand because the Rambam appeared to say one thing in one place and another thing in another place. And he, for a number of weeks, until he came to the conclusion and he got to the proper understanding of the Rambam. And the questions went away. And the next day, he was in the shul, in the Beis Midrash, in the house of study, and 2 young men were learning this very Rambam, and one brought up the question to the other that the Rav Yosef Karo had been struggling with for 3 weeks, and the other one thought about it for a minute, and he gave him the answer, the same answer that Rav Yosef Karo had come up with after struggling for a number of weeks. He gave him after a minute or 2. Yosef Karo was shocked, and he went, I don't know who he spoke it over with, but the person he spoke it over with told him, you opened the path. The first one who goes through the jungle with the machete, right? He makes a path for the rest of the people to be able to go through. So the previous Rebbe opened that path. When you make a decision that no power in the world is going to be able to stop you from serving Hashem, even if they beat you 3 times, it's not going to affect your decision. That's one thing.
Is there a Chabad in Tehran?
In Tehran? No. I don't think anyone would volunteer to go there. To volunteer to go to Tehran. I don't know if they would even let a Jew in. I don't even think they would let a Jew in.
There's a lot of Jews there.
There's a lot of Jews there, but they're going to let new Jews in?
You get your house discovered.
I don't know. I never heard that there is.
Sounds like a good challenge for you.
Huh?
Sounds like a good challenge.
For me?
The Jews are big smugglers.
Oh,
They can smuggle Jews in there. So if you were in Tehran, שמרתם את נפשותיהם מאוד.
כן.
So what would he have done?
Why? It was less dangerous in Soviet Russia. They had a decree of death against him. And the Rebbe continues, another thing we can learn, when a Jew serves Hashem with a powerful decision, Hadavar Poel, that type of behavior, when a Jew serves Hashem correctly and without being intimidated by all kinds of forces, so that type of decision and that type of action causes shegam Yehudi kazeh hanitza be'es ma'aseh b'la'umat zeh, that even a Jew who is right now stuck in a very deep and dark personal exile, like Lulav was. He was a member of the Yevseksia, of the Communist Party. He fought against the Jewish nation. Even a Jew like that will sense his Yiddishkeit, Chassidut, Rebbe, Ad shezeu chayav, Ad shu koreh b'pashtus Rebbe. He senses that it's part of his life. And he cries out, Rebbe, instead of calling him Schneerson. The sof kol sof, mevatzea adam b'hatzlacha, u'mibidat hatzorach ba'ofen nisi. And when a Jew goes in a way like that, he'll see that in the end, he'll be successful in everything. And Hashem will make miracles for him. Not just in the Inyanim Ha'ikarim, not just in the main things, but even in the things that are secondary, Ukuloshan HaRevi Morasham, the Rebbe Moreno HaRasham, Nishmaseda, like in the language of the Rebbe Rachab, who was the father of the previous Rebbe, Shleimus lo rak be'etzem ki im gam pashtus. That completeness is not just in the essence of the thing, but also in the extension of the thing. Okay, it's a Hasidic concept, but the idea that the Rebbe is trying to bring over here, that even in something that's an extension, he'll see miracles. Even if it's not the Iker itself, it's not the main thing. And in all his ways, he'll go out in freedom, b'yad ramah, with an outstretched hand, like the Jews left Egypt the Jews left b'yad ramah in a powerful way, b'reish galei, and without fear, without any trembling, without proud. Alachas kama v'kama, how much more so? כשיהודי נמצא במעמד ומצב שיש לו את האפשרות להפיץ יהדות, ללא התעלמות והסתרים, how much more so when a Jew can actually spread Yiddishkeit without these types of obstacles that are preventing him, like a Soviet KGB or what is it called? GPU. GPU. Without these types of obstacles. Not only that, but not only that, but he's helped. He gets a salary for it. Not just in the world to come, even in this world. I don't know exactly what the Rebbe is referring to. All he needs is to make a powerful decision inside himself. that shechayavim l'kayem et hashlichot shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he has to fulfill HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mission, the mission HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving him, the assignment. Ve'ein litpalel mehakshayim shenitkalim behem, and not to become influenced by the difficulties that he undergoes. Efshar liot betuchim, so you can be a promise. Shefofetz Hashem biyadam, that Hashem will be very pleased with the actions. V'yatzliach lahafitz Torah haniglu b'chasidus, and he'll be successful in spreading Torah, both the revealed aspect of Torah and the inner aspect of the kiyum of mitzvahs behidor, and fulfilling the mitzvahs in the proper way, in a way which is beyond what the minimum is. Ad sheyeh, until there will be the purpose of what creation was made, that the world will be filled with knowledge of God like the water covers the oceans. So everyone should have a very joyous Yud Beis and your Gimel Tammuz.
All these